Alright, we are back in action. Welcome back, everybody. We're picking up where we left off from the weekend, and we're just gonna tie up some loose ends and finish what we set out to do. So last night we ended up with this SVG right here. We were trying to get this effect, but we were having some bugs when we had multiple steps, and took some time away and looked into it a little bit further and figured out the best way to do it. So I'm going to walk through the approach I took to figure out how to fix that bug, and then what we're going to do is get that exclamation point up here and get the optional button in there as well, and we'll call it a weekend. This is RabbitWerks JavaScript, and we're doing a live coding session for Vue.js. Okay, so we're going to look at the add task component, and in here we're going to be able to, let's take a look at right in this spot. Okay, so the binding, class binding that we're doing to the path is how we got to do it, and it is setting this class dynamically based on the step is important step Boolean value. So if it's true or false, and this is independent of its own self. Before, or last night, we were trying to get it processed in here, and it was just not working because of the logic, and it was triggering the wrong things too. So if we had a couple steps in here, for example, the last item in our array was triggering the color to change on all of them, and then even though this value for the Boolean was changing, so now they're independent of each other completely, and they still retain their true false value independently as well. So that's awesome. So what we want to do is when we push that, we want a little exclamation mark to load up in here to signify that that step is important. Okay, so if we take a look at the task list, and in our markup, it's going to be in the task details component. So in our markup right here is where we're going to want to add that icon when we load the task. And yeah. Alright, so what we want to do before we go any further is we're going to add this exclamation, or the question mark that I have, and to give this some more space. Okay, so it's going to be kind of the same concept as the exclamation mark, and we know how to do it now since we hacked our way through it the first time. So we're going to take that and just start by, if we look at this, this is the SVG for the exclamation mark. We don't need that anymore. So let's collapse this SVG for now, and then we'll have to do another. So we'll put a div with the class of, well, let's just do action button outer, and we'll change that to this. Actually, let's just see what this loads up to be in sizing. So I'll have to copy this again and then bring that into the task list, or the add task, and then put that in. So if we take a look at that, what do we have? Alright, so before I give this the same, or switch up this class name at all, I just want to make sure that nothing is relying on the class name in the logic. It shouldn't be, but I just want to double check. Okay, so that's... Okay, so we should be good to go. So this is in the SVG itself, and we actually don't even need this. So we can delete that. And cool. Alright, so if we look at the class again, I'm going to change this to action button. And same with this one. Now with that I can change the CSS class or CSS styles with it, and we'll have to see what that does. So it's not getting a width. So just scaffolding this out a little bit so we can see it easier, and then we can figure out how to get this to show up. Okay, so let's give it a class and we can give some styles to it to make it, I think it's just too big off the screen. We don't want it that, we want it, well, let's just see if we have that on there, if it'll load up. Okay, so it's there, cool. But let's just change that to its own. Optional. And then we go make that rule down in the CSS down here. And then I think, let me just double check this really quick because I think this should be that. Yeah, so we want this class name to be here, and that shouldn't change anything, but let's see. Let's see. Inside this element, inside this class, whatever. And okay, well, And it works like that. Interesting. Okay. Well, oh well, I'm not gonna screw with that if it works. What I gotta do is get that optional in here. And let's see, actually what we can do is just chain it. You don't need its own separate one since it's not going to have any other styles. Cool. And we also want the path class name on there too, so equals optional SVG path, and we'll also have to have a class binding like that as well for this one, but we need to put the logic in for that. So we'll just chain this right there as well. And then with that, we should have all three of them. Cool. Alright, so this does have some padding on the actual list item, and if we look at it, could take that off so these sit flush, and we just say, so this guy right here, so in the li we'll just have to say padding right 0. Let's see what that does for us if we go into our markup. Alright, now we scroll to, so here's our list item, and it's rendering out a list for the v4 directive, and so we can add the padding right 0. Let's see what that does for us. Cool. Might want to add just a tad bit because it seems a little smushed to the right now. So if we do padding right 1, what does that give us? Cool. So it looks a lot better. We have our icon, and then we'll do the same thing with the question mark. Alright, so let's do that. So the first thing we're going to want to start with is when we initialize the first step. So add steps to step, or add step to steps. What we're going to want to do is push one more property to it, and it's going to be called is optional step, and that's going to be set to false by default as well. And so with that, we can target that. Same thing with this down here. We're going to want to put another one. Is optional step is also false. And okay, so when we push that, we'll have to have our own method for that. And then what we do with the method is we're gonna attach an event listener, the click event listener, and the same thing as we did to the outside or the outer div wrapper, since we're using an SVG and it wasn't working before. So on this guy, so we'll just say at click equals, and we don't have anything yet, so okay, put it inside the actual markup. Okay, so we're going to call this set as optional step, and we got to pass in the index again, same with what we do up here. Otherwise we wouldn't have the parentheses on the end of it. Okay, so next thing we want to do is write that method right underneath the set as important step. We'll write another method, and it'll be called set as optional. Not set optional, set as optional step. And that's going to take the index as well. Put a comma here so it stops yelling at us. And then with that, we'll basically do the same thing as this, but for the optional step. So let's just take a look at our app really quick. And if we go in here, just refresh it just in case, and let's pull up Vue DevTools and look at this, and let's just inspect this. Oh. Okay, so add task, and then in the new task, okay, so it's in there. Cool. Now we can target it properly. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is basically do another toggle method, essentially. So we'll do this dot new task dot steps, and then brackets, and we'll pass in the index, and then dot is optional step, and then we'll set that to equal to not this dot new task dot steps, and or brackets with the index dot is optional step. Okay, same thing, just swapping the value between true and false because it's a boolean. And so let's see if that works. So when we look at this, okay, so let's take a look at our app and see if that took effect. So refresh it for good measure and take a look at the dev tools and then our steps. Okay, let's see. If we have everything rolling right. Okay. Let's go in here and just make sure we're triggering this. And okay, so it is running. And let's just console log the value after we do it. This dot, same thing, so we're just gonna copy this in and see what that gives us. So if we refresh and look at this, add new step. Okay, so it's working. It's just not reflecting in this for whatever reason. Even though the true one does. Interesting. Let's see what this. I wonder. Well, I don't know. We'll have to see if that runs and creates a problem later, but for right now, we're just gonna go with it. Alright, so one more thing I want to do is get that exclamation mark loaded up in here too. And so it just says some string interpolation here, but I think we're gonna have to make this a little bit more controlled with some more markup. Okay, so Okay, so what we're gonna do is just throw this into a div, and we'll just call it step content. Cool. So we'll have this div, and then I'm just gonna put that in there. And then what we're gonna do is have another div of, what do we want to call it? Important icon. And then in there, we're gonna want to have that SVG. And for this, we can just use, let's see. If we just set the color, alright, so we're gonna just take this guy, and we'll have to make some modifications, but I just want the scaffold markup, and we'll put it in there. Bring it back a little bit. Okay, so with that SVG in here now, what we can, we'll take a look at our app and see what that looks like. It's broken. Okay, so not read property steps of undefined. Oh, because this thing is throwing it off. We don't need that. What we will need though, and it won't be on this actually, so we can just clear that white space and important SVG path, so we'll give that a color too. We're gonna give that the same color as it is in the details of the add task color. So this color right here. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's gonna be this one. So actually, let's just put it underneath this. That edit didn't work, or that paste didn't work very well, but that's alright. And we'll just set the fill property, because it's an SVG, we have to set it to this color. Cool, and let's see. What else? Oh yeah, perfect. That's what we want. Okay, so let's get some styles in here for the actual SVG, and that has a class of step important SVG. Oops, and put that in right here. And this might not be the best practice for CSS styling in Vue, but I'm not exactly sure what the best practices are yet, so there is duplicates, so to speak, but it should be alright for this application, and it should compile down to be everything should be alright anyways. And what we're gonna want to do with this is just give it some dimensions. Let's just say 2 rem. Let's actually do this. Okay, so the height, it's a little big. We'll do 1.5. And you know what we should do is okay, so we're gonna have this over here, and then I think we'll have a checkbox possibly here. We can just check off which steps are complete and have a master complete for the task itself. We're gonna have to add that in at some point, but for now we'll just do get this over to this side. And how we're gonna do that is by, let's close that out. And this, how we're gonna do that is by using Flexbox, and so we have to target this class with CSS, and right above here, put in it an entry for important dash icon, and hold on a second, we'll need to do we'll actually have to target this list item and see if we can throw a Flexbox on that. If not, we'll have to throw these two, the SVG and the step content, into its own div wrapper. So let's actually put the class onto this guy, and we'll call it step flex display. No, we don't need to say all that. We'll just say step flex. Okay, so in here, instead of having that, we'll say step flex, and that's gonna have a display of flex. And again, Flexbox is awesome, and if you want to learn more about it, I will link a course by Wes Boss called What the Flexbox, where he dives deep into how Flexbox works and some real world examples and really breaks it down really nice. So I'll link that in the description if you want to check out more about Flexbox. And so with that, so that puts it on the same line. Cool. And what to say, we want to justify content, kind of the same, so we want space between. And okay, so that pushes it over there. Perfect. We should actually probably bump the font size up on this. Just a little bit. Maybe bring this size down just a tad. Just even things out a little bit. So that's the steps title. Step content. We can just target that and change the size. And font size, we'll do 1.3 rem. And we'll see where that's at. Okay, that's not bad. Might need to bring this font size up too. We might have to bring that down just a tad bit. Let's see what that gives us. Okay. And then we'll adjust the height of our SVG. We'll do 1.6 rems. And let's see if we can throw a line items on this guy. Center. Alright, cool. So now that we have it in there and it's displaying correctly, we have to make sure it displays on or we'll have to make sure it displays conditionally. So based on the is important step value of each individual step. So if it's true, we'll have it displaying. If it's not, we won't. And how are we going to do that? Well, you probably guessed it. We're just going to use a v-show directive. So v-show equals, and then what we want to base it on. So it's going to be what step dot is important step. Okay, so let's see if that does it. Oh, console log. It's important step undefined. Step I. Well, let's take okay, so let's see if we push a task to that with important step and a not important step, and then another important step. If we take a look at this, look at that. Awesome. It's there. Cool. We didn't need the square brackets and index because this is iterating over each of them. So it's going to be the current iteration for everything inside of this list item. Therefore, self is implied kind of thing. The only reason why we're passing I in here is because we're getting the value itself, so we can just display it right here. Okay, so with that in there, let's get see, what we want to do is get that optional thing going, and then I think we'll wrap it up for the evening. Okay, so again, let's look in our add task component, and if we look at the logic, we have that it's working. So if we go up to what we want to do now is set this dynamic styling for the path color, and we need, before we do that, we need to set the color we want for the path. So if we go here, so we'll do dot optional true again, and we'll just set the fill to what color do we want it to be. Well, we could just try this dark turquoise and see what that gives us. So in the add task component, we just put that in there, and cool. So now what we can do up here is we can do vbind class equals and then an object, and what we want to put in this object is we're going to say the class name that we want to apply, and it's going to be the optional dash true, and if you have hyphens in the class name, you have to put it in the single quotes, otherwise it's not valid. And so we'll set that to new task dot steps, pass in the index, and then dot is optional step. Okay, and that should be all there is to it. So with that in there, based on what this true or false value is, it will display or add this class on top of this class. So let's see if that looks, or if that works. Cool. Perfect. And So now that that's on there, the last thing to do let's check our logic really quick because we need to push this through when we do add new task. New task data equals this dot new task, and then so that should be in there automatically, and then let's just make sure it's pushed correctly. Question and important. Add new task. Let's take a look at it. So it's got the important one on there, and then we take a look. Oh, if we look at the Vue dev tools, task list, and the third one, details, steps, object, true and true. Cool. So they're both in there. So we just need to have maybe set the how do we want to signify that this is an optional step? When do we want to just do another? Do the question mark there? I feel like that'll get too busy. Or do we want to darken it a little bit? The list item. Maybe tint it. I don't know. We can try that and see. What we want to also do at some point is when we have this, we want to be able to have a little info box pop up saying that mark as important step or mark as optional step or delete step. So there's a little bit of user interaction, user guidance there, because it wouldn't necessarily be all that obvious what just these icons by themselves. This one you probably figure out, but these two you probably wouldn't be able to figure out without actually playing around, and we want it to be simple and straightforward. I just want to look at this SVG really quick. Let's see. I want to check and see if I can fix that little gap. And what is the markup in there? Important icon. And well, let's see if we can just throw so just keep making it bigger. I don't think we need any margin on here actually. Maybe just a little bit. I'll do that margin top one again. Okay. I don't know, maybe we need that margin 2 again. Okay. So what we want to do is, so the step right here we're gonna have to do let's scaffold this out just a little bit as well, so we can read everything better. And we'll do class equals, no, an object, and then in this we're gonna want to say, what we want to do is just set let's just do step optional. So with that we'll do background color, and you can just set this to okay, so we don't have to keep pushing a task to see this. I want to just get this in here. Okay. Okay, so, and this is not, this is false. And this should obviously be true, and this can be false. We need to say is optional step true. Is optional step false. And with that, let's head up to the markup again, and not in here, in our task details. We'll have to set class binding. We'll do, what is it called? Step optional. And that's going to be based on step that is optional step. Cool, so if we look at that, you can see that the color changes. Cool. And that's not the color that we want, but we just wanted to see if that was taking effect. So, let's see. So what we could do is go, okay, so let's take this, since we're using the dark turquoise color, we'll take that and bring it in and set the color as that. And then if we click on this color picker, if we click on the top, it'll cycle it between the different display styles and formats or whatever, and then we'll set RGBA, and then we can set the opacity, which is the alpha, or the A as 0.5 or so, and see what that looks like. Cool. So it's just kind of dim, and we can set that to like 2 and see what that does. Cool. So we got our optional step, and then we got our important step. We could even do the same kind of thing with the important, but I don't know. Looks alright. Let's bring that up again. Okay, cool. That's a little bit nicer. And with that, cool. Alright. I think that's gonna do it for the night. And finished what we set out to do this weekend. It turned into a little bit bigger of a task than I thought it would be. But it's there, and we learned a lot along the way. So in this one, we have both of them on. It's an optional and important. Alright, cool. So, alright, that's gonna do it. Thank you for tuning in to another live coding session with RabbitWerks JavaScript, Vue.js, and Bootstrap. So, I'm gonna push my code up to GitHub. Feel free to take a look at it. Feel free to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And check out the courses by Wes Boss, and I'll link to the description in. And if you like this video, comment, like, subscribe, and say what's up. Alright everybody, I'm signing out. Have a good rest of your week and stay awesome.